Welcome to the Money Watch Show. It's Thursday, July 4th, Independence Day. So happy Independence Day to all. I know that many of you will not be listening to this until sometime after this week. If you have not done so, please go and listen to Tuesday's show because we're talking to Josh Brown and Michael Batnick. They are the co-hosts of The Compound and Friends. They are fantastic. They're pals of mine. And their show is a much deeper dive into the world of investing, even though they do work at an investment advisory firm. And I thought that this would be a unique opportunity to just give you a little bit more with Michael and Josh about just who they are as human beings. So without further ado, here's the second part of our interview with Josh Brown and Michael Batnick. So I would like to know from you guys, people listen to you, they feel like they know you. You know that. It's weird. You have super fans, right?
Shout out to the fans, yo.
Shout out to the fans. Michael, what is something that you think your fans would be very surprised to learn, like a core part of who you are that they don't know?
So what you just mentioned, like super fans, how does that feel? I'm a lifelong Howard Stern fan. And so this was maybe not an insight that I had early on, but it was obvious to me that in order for this to work, for the fans to feel like they know you beyond just what you say on the microphone, you have to be open and vulnerable. So on Howard's show, Jason and Ronnie and all the guys, like, you know them. I mean, I feel like I know them. I know the listeners do too. And so I say all that to say that I'm pretty open and honest on the show. I think I am. Mm-hmm. I don't know, maybe Josh could answer this. I don't think that there's anything about me that I think would shock the audience.
Shock. Well, how about this? Okay, you want to know a funny...
Maybe this. Duncan, you could weigh in here. Am I like nicer in real life?
Hold on. Duncan is walking over to the microphone. My microphone is falling.
That wasn't a dramatic pause. I was away from a mic.
Tell people how nice I am.
Yeah, Mike's a very nice guy. Yeah.
Nobody thinks you're not nice in the audience, though. Why do you think that's your rep?
I think people think that you're out of touch. I don't think they think that you're not nice.
See, this is why
wait a minute. Why is that?
Go on.
The comments on like Animal Spirits are often there's stuff about like being out of touch with like takes and stuff. It's not. I don't see people being like, I think Mike's a mean person.
But what do they think you're out of touch by?
So here, I want to get your take on this. So. Everything.
There's always something.
So I've been talking about this and thinking about this. I grew up fine financially.
Yes.
Right? My parents took care of me.
Yeah.
I was never able to buy $100 sneakers, but I always had sneakers, right? I never went on an airplane to Aruba. We took car trips to Boston and DC. Like that's what we could afford.
Middle class.
I was fine.
Yep.
But I had some nice things. I went to sleepaway camp, so I was not deprived. But I did not grow up with
wealthy.
luxury.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have a new car when I was a teenager. Fine, but certainly was not familiar with money. And in 2010, when I was 25 years old, I made $400 for the year, right? I worked since I was...
I don't think you have to file taxes at that level.
From 15...
He's proud of those units.
No, proud of those units. From 15 until 24, I was working blue-collar jobs for that whole 9-year period because I had to. Okay. So now I am in a different place economically, and it is an interesting...
He's balling out of control.
It is,
obviously.
It is an interesting transition to make from having no money, never thinking that I would make any money. And when I had a little bit of money, I genuinely felt rich. Mm-hmm. Like when I first made $100,000, I felt rich.
Yeah.
Like not just, I actually felt that way. And your relationship with money changes obviously over time because I remember distinctly feeling, in fact, Josh and I had this conversation one time. If this is all the money I ever made, I'd feel great. Like, oh my God, I never thought I would make this much money. And this was like a while ago. Now, obviously, if I went back in time, I'd jump out the window because your relationship with money, the goalpost move and all that sort of stuff. So it is interesting to hear the audience, or at least according to Duncan, say that I'm out of touch because
it's mainly inflation. Honestly, that's the main.
Oh, you mean
people
because like the
about.
people? I mean, listen, we all understand that we're human beings. We go fill up our cars.
What's fun is watching though. What's fun for the audience is watching Michael grow increasingly out of touch as time goes on.
Oh, I see.
Just wait till I get the Porsche.
What is a long-held belief of yours that you think that might be surprising to our listeners?
That's a really good question. If I had prepared for it.
That's why I don't give questions in advance, dude.
So a long-held belief of mine that would not be unpopular, would be surprising. Huh. Give me like 30 seconds on that.
Take 30 seconds.
Yeah. Let's hear Michael's.
That's a good one.
That's so tough.
I'll give you mine. How about that? I'll start with mine.
I believe in nothing, Lebowski, so I don't know. Go ahead.
He doesn't have any beliefs.
Yeah.
Well, I think what I actually believe is that I'm a person, my show is called Jill on Money, right?
Yeah.
I talk about money all the time. I am completely bored about conversations about money. Like not
You mean in your personal life?
in life
Your
in
own
general.
conversations.
I am not interested in money very much. I am very much interested in the emotions behind it. I'm very much interested in the dynamics behind what happens to us when we have it and we don't. Listen, I like money. I grew up like an upper class kid. I had anything I wanted, but I not like when my mother says to me, "Oh, I spoke to so-and-so and, his son, he just bought the biggest house he made. I heard he is worth $20 million." Like, could not care less. And so I talk about money all the time because I love stories about people. I fell in love with you guys, not because you're rich money managers and I wish you were richer for your sakes, but because I think like you are Hamish men who have a way of talking about money that demystifies it. Duncan needs a translation. Quick, what does Hamish mean?
Honestly, I don't know.
Hamish means like a good guy, a good boy, a mensch,
Okay.
a menschula. Like
Oh,
good.
so I know mine. I think financial literacy is a waste of time.
Oh yes.
I think put people in the real economy and let them learn. I don't think you could teach kids anything that's worth anything.
I love that one.
They don't listen. It's not gonna. Until people have to support themselves, they ain't gonna learn anything. It's at the moment when people are forced to learn, and like it's life or death, and it's pay the rent or not be able to pay the rent. That's when you have their attention.
Can I add to that? I agree, but I do totally agree that kids don't learn. I was the worst student ever. So kids, not that I'm every student, but kids don't learn in school. They learn what they want to learn. And I don't know that financial literacy would change everybody's outcome. However, home economics where you're sewing a stuffed bear, get rid of
Do
that.
they still have that?
I don't know.
That's
Okay.
over.
Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Why not teach personal
That's Mike.
finance?
They don't do that anymore.
All right, fine.
It's code. It's coding in
But
high school now.
why not teach personal finance?
Well, here's the thing. This is what I would say. Data, I read these reams of data. They don't have better outcomes, but we do want them familiar with the term. So I think you can teach as math. You should teach what compounding interest is.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's part of math.
I agree, and I'm not against teaching personal finance. I'm saying financial literacy specifically.
Yeah.
There's academic studies showing the more an investor thinks they're educated, the worse their results are.
Exactly.
Because it leads to overconfidence bias, or they end up doing more things in their accounts. I'm saying, yes, teach personal finance. Stop calling it financial literacy. You could be as literate as you want until you are a functioning adult with bills to pay and a job to show up at. None of that stuff is really gonna hit home. So I love the idea that we want to expose kids to
Technical
these
analysis.
concepts. The problem is it's not going to sink in.
Yeah.
And I just don't think it's time well spent. I think when you want to really educate people is when they're 22, 23. And this whole thing like, oh, they can't even teach a kid how to use a checkbook. Don't worry about that. The kids are Venmoing at 10 years old from their mother's account. Don't worry about checkbooks anymore. Like all of those concepts to me are a huge waste of time.
I just feel I'm very into math because I'm a math nerd girl. And I just think that we need to teach math and just incorporate these concepts into your math classes. That's it. All right, Michael, you're not off the hook. You can't just dovetail on Big Boy's super Roberto Salazar, the runner extraordinaire.
So what is the question?
The question is,
I need more time to think.
Okay.
The question is what?
The question is really,
Are we going to let him get away with these glasses the entire time?
I can't. I mean, I'm trying really hard. The question is, what is a very closely held belief that you hold that might surprise listeners?
Okay. I really strongly believe that money matters less than people think in terms of satisfying their need for it. People always want more money. I do too. But I think that if you are a person who is unhappy, and you just think that if you had enough money to get a second home or to have a nicer car or to have more vacations, I'm like positive that's not the answer.
Yeah.
And I know that some people don't like to hear that, but I'm positive that's not the answer to happiness.
What would you rather?
It's something else. There's a hole that you're looking to fill, and it's not money.
Exactly right. That's why you should start drinking heavily and see if it fills
Well,
up that way.
there
I'm
we
just
agree.
kidding. But
if you have that hole, it's better to have more money, though.
Well, this is my mother's.
Even if it doesn't fill it.
My mother's saying is, rich or poor, it's nice to have money. Because
course.
obviously, if something bad is happening, it's better to have more money. But
I would say the caveat to what I would just say is like there's a baseline. Listen,
Yeah.
if you're poor, that message does not apply.
yeah, and if
I'm
you're
talking
and if-
about the person that's making 140,000 that thinks like making 300 would make them happy.
But I'll tell you what is fascinating. After talking to people all the time and people that come in onto my show and it's like, I make $300,000. I live in suburban New York City and I feel poor. And I'm like, and I have to explain to the listeners, they are poor. Here.
Contextually.
Like, here's what I need to tell you. Someone making $300,000 living in
But your listener from elsewhere is going to say, well, why do they live there?
and so I would put that back to those people, which
Where
is
should they live?
are you sure you're doing what you want to do? Because what you've done is you've put yourself in a place where you're comparing up, right? Like, it would be great to be like, I make $300,000. I'm the richest person on my block. And you look down, you're like, I'm lucky. But why is it that we've put ourselves in a place where, we're strivers. We want to achieve. We want to go in nice neighborhoods where there's good schools. I get all of that. I feel like we put ourselves in these cages. And then we're fighting, we're clawing our way to get out of this cage. And you put yourself there.
Because you're in a lifestyle and you're surrounded by other people. None of this is absolute. It's not, I want to make more than $300,000 because it's going to make me happy. It's, I want to make more than $300,000 because my kids are going to school and their friends' parents are making $500 and we can't keep up. So this concept of more money won't make you happy definitely will.
No.
Because you will compete. Yes, of course it will. It won't make you ultimately happy, but it will make you happier because you will have less pressure relative to the people that are in your comps.
I think
and we
that
all
that's-
have comps and we should stop pretending that we don't.
Well, I used to say to my sister and brother-in-law, they would talk about things, and I said, "You really need some poorer friends. It would really
Yeah,
do you. It
that
would
would
do
help.
you
I
well.
totally agree
it
with
really
that.
would be like, you know
Nothing-
what? It will level your mind in a way that is so different.
But here's the problem. All the influencers say the opposite. Make friends with wealthy people and see how they save, see how they
That's
spend.
baloney. Mostly they're lucky.
Or what about the people that say, Scott Galloway told us this 2 days ago, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if that's true, then make friends with poorer people can't also be true.
I think that's completely baloney, and I think that's a baloney stat. So I'll just call that out.
Well,
because
I don't think anyone says a stat, but I
But
get
you know what I'm
you
saying?
mean.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I just think that you put yourself in a place where you are constantly feeling like you are less than.
Yeah, it sucks.
Nothing good is going to happen.
It sucks. I agree.
And so I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I'm just saying either figure out how to get happy with where you are and articulate that to your kids. It's like,
But that's not practical.
well,
Because that's not a choice. That's not a choice.
That's not going to work.
No, it's not a choice. That's like telling somebody.
It is a
no,
choice.
it's not. It's like maybe this is a bad analogy, but you can't tell somebody who's depressed to be happy.
no, I agree with that.
So
that I agree
So
with.
nothing is more relative than money, and you can't not
Can I
compare
ask you a
yourself.
question?
You can't not compare yourself.
Do you have friends that have moved? Do you have friends that have moved their families to Parkland or
What is
or,
it? Nice neighborhoods?
or Boca or somewhere from
No.
Leave New York, but go somewhere where there are a lot of New Yorkers. Do you have any friends that have done that?
No.
Okay, so I have 3 families where we're very friendly with them. They were making an okay living here.
Yep.
And just as I described, it was never enough.
Yes.
No matter how hard they worked, switch jobs, take a job that has free healthcare, whatever. It just was never going to be enough for here. Those people, pre-pandemic and during pandemic, moved to Florida.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that it's so much cheaper to live there now. Actually, we're approaching parity. But the comps are easier. And I see these people, and they are radiating happiness.
Amazing.
They are healthy, tan. They don't have a 5-month period where you can't walk out the front door. They moved that. So where I disagree with you, Michael, is they moved themselves somewhere that they could be happy.
Right. It's not like I'm saying, oh, you got to move from Scarsdale to the Bronx, and therefore you will be happy. But I do think that if you, fancy
You can
suburb,
change your life.
you can change certain things
Absolutely can.
that will, I think, impact you. All right, we're
Wait,
on.
hold on.
we're-
Last thing. I'm sorry.
I have a second to last thing.
If you're making $500,000, but somebody next to you is making $700,000, and you can't quite do what they're doing,
Yeah.
I'm
Or-
sorry. I have no sympathy for people in that situation. Zero.
I'll tell you, one of my favorite calls, I put it in the book, was a guy who is, he and his wife made $350,000. They lived on the Upper West Side. They sent their 3 kids to Jewish day school. It was ridiculous. And by the way,
Oh, yeah.
350 grand, They got financial aid in New
Yeah.
York City, just FYI. But they're struggling. And he goes, well, you know, my kids are going to school with kids that are going to fancy camps and they're going on fancy trips. And,
Yep.
you know, I'm like, well, you put them in that school.
That's right.
Go put them in some Jewish day school somewhere else.
So I agree. So I totally agree with that. If you're in such an unhappy place, then you're in the wrong place.
Yes.
So, and sometimes the answer is not more money. To Michael's point, if the thing that's making you unhappy specifically has nothing to do with money, you're just an unhappy person, that's different. If the thing that's making you unhappy is that you're killing yourself and there's just never enough money, that might not have to do with anything other than just I need more money. And if you can't make more where you are, a change of atmosphere is not the worst prescription.
Well, that's it. That's the program. I hope you have a wonderful Independence Day. And if you're taking the week off, I hope you have a great week. Recharge yourself. If you've got a financial question, go to our website, JillOnMoney.com, click the Contact Us button, and write us a note. If you'd like to join us live, do not forget, you got to check the box. Mark does everything else. Check out all of our content. It lives on the website, especially our subscription service called Jill on Money Live. That's where you have access to quarterly live webinars and lots of cool bonus video content. Mark Talercio is the co-host and executive producer of the show. He's also the king of all things web for Jill on Money. We're distributed by Paramount Global. We drop our episodes Tuesdays and Thursdays. Please try to do something nice for someone else today. Change your work, change your wealth, change your life. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Paramount Podcasts.